The Trump administration in the United States has suspended a range of work visas till the end of the year. Most notably, one of the visas suspended is the H1B, and of course, the spouses of H1B, which is the H4, and others, of course, like L1 and J1 and so forth. This move is set to hurt Indians the most because Indians are the largest beneficiaries of the H1B visa, accounting for about 70% of the share. So I'm going to turn to Tushar Gupta for his insights on this.
Hi Karan. Karan, the Twitter has been active very early morning, everyone, because Trump has finally gone for what he was threatening for so long, the H1B kill. That is the favorite visa of Indian techies. Now, it's not just H1B visa which has been impacted. The H2B visa, which is for short-term seasonal workers. Then there is the J1 visa, which is for the short-term workers, non-farm activities, and the L1, which is for internal company transfers. But the greater attention will be taken by H1B visas because that's what is concerning Indians the most. Now, why did he go for it, or what are the intricacies of it is something we'll come to it later. But it's important to note he's been making that point for a while, and already he's getting the backlash from the likes of Google, the Microsofts, because all of these companies, the GAFAs, to put it in a simple manner, they rely on offshore talent. They rely on immigrants in a big way. Of course, a major part of the Trump campaign has been to bring back jobs to America, to make America great again, to get the supply chains back to America. But the H1B, the temporary suspension, we must remember it's a temporary suspension which will come into force on June 24, midnight, and will be till the end of this year. So it's a temporary suspension, and of course, it will impact a lot of Indian workers, especially the first time H1B visa, the people who had applied for the first time.
Tushar, let me ask you a very specific question which might be useful to our viewers. So what happens now to the Indian workers and also to those who are looking to join the workforce there?
Yes, Karan, I'll come back first to the ones who were looking to join the job there. Now, the coronavirus has anyway been hampering the international flight activity since April. So anyway, since April, now it's almost July, people have not really gone out to work, let's say in foreign countries. Now, given the second and the third waves that are coming up in the likes of the United States, even in India, I wasn't very sure how much of that impact will have on people who are going to go for the first time with an H1B visa. Of course, it's a dent to their prospects. They will be more stressed about it, given there's a lack of clarity about what happens after December. But we must also keep in mind the fact that already because of the coronavirus, not a lot of H1B visa holders or applies were anyway going to the United States for jobs. Even the companies, due to the second and the third waves of the coronavirus outbreak, the lockdowns they were preferring for people to work from home, those who could. For instance, Twitter actually, very early on in the lockdown, Twitter actually made it compulsory, or it gave the people the option to work from home from where they could. So I don't see how H1B visa holders in this case will be impacted, but of course they will be dented. Now, coming to the second point about the workers who are already there. Now, there are some rumors about lakhs and lakhs of Indians will have to come back from the Silicon Valley. I have been reading some on Twitter. So I actually spoke to two of my friends in the morning who are working in Silicon Valley on H1B visas. The problem, Karan, is there's still a lack of clarity on how it will play out. Of course, the order says it doesn't apply to existing H1B holders. It doesn't apply to the ones who are already there or even outside the country with an H1B visa. But again, there is a lot of gray area in between, which people over there have told me. So it all boils down to a very case-by-case basis for them. For instance, I have a friend whose H1B visa would be expiring in November. So they are waiting for a word from the attorney on how to proceed further. So, Karan, we have to take into account that there's still a lot of gray area when it comes to the existing H1B visa holders. When it comes to the ones who would be getting the H1B visa for the first time, their prospects had anyway been dented by the coronavirus already. And this is a temporary suspension until December. So after that, what happens will depend a lot upon the US elections, a lot about the coronavirus outbreak, a lot on how the companies want to plan further when it comes to their entire office setup.
Right. Tushar, obviously Trump is running for re-election soon in November. And is this his sort of first step? Is he capitalizing on the coronavirus situation in order to boost his electoral prospects? Because this was one of his key promises, isn't it, to restrict immigration?
Absolutely. He is playing to the gallery, Karan. There are elections 6 months from now. His coronavirus outbreak handling hasn't been something one can make an example out of it. Perhaps it's been most miserable, even if you take into account countries like India and Pakistan, where resources are far more scarce. And even then, these countries have somehow managed better, especially India. But then his coronavirus outbreak has not been handling has not been very good. That has taken an impact on the economy. More than 40 million Americans have filed for unemployment claims. The stimulus package, the 2 trillion stimulus package he's been speaking about, it's not been enough. And then there has been the George Floyd fiasco, the protests that have broken out in many American cities and states. So all in all, Trump is looking at the election 6 months from now in a very uncomfortable position than he was 6 months ago. 6 months ago, he was winning the trade war. The economy was doing well in his own words, in his own tweets rather. But now things have turned very different. So what option does he have now? He wants to play to the gallery. Even though a lot of H1B jobs, the techie, the high paying jobs, they are not something that are preferred by Americans. Even then, he wants to play to the gallery saying that, look, I'm bringing back jobs to America. I'm taking jobs away from the legal immigrants even. His campaign against illegal immigrants is well known. This is his campaign against legal immigrants who come to America, take the jobs. And it's just not about Indian techies. Compare to the workers who come from South America, from Mexico to work on H2B visas for those seasonal jobs, short-term jobs, non-farming short-term jobs. He's also attacking all those legal immigrants. So this is his idea of playing to the gallery as and when elections approach, because Republicans, they prefer this kind of action against immigrants because they want to see more jobs going to the Americans traditionally as it was.
Right, Tushar, tell me this. We had this grand Namaste Trump event, and both of the leaders came together. It was a signal of strength and probably strengthening cooperation between the two. And now then this move comes, which sort of directly dents Indian workers, because like we said, 70% of the beneficiaries are Indians. What do you think has happened?
Karan, yes, that is actually a good question. People are very quick to call out the failure of the Namaste Trump event, which we saw in Ahmedabad, and how the entire thing played out. It was a perfect theatric setup. Even Trump mentioned that when he went back to the US. But see, there are 4 factors which I will boil down one by one. Firstly, it's a temporary suspension, Karan. We don't know how it will play out after December. Already, I've made the point that the existing H1B holders, they would have been on hold when it comes to moving to the United States, and the existing H1B holders have a lot of gray area, which they will look at a case by case basis in their respective countries. Secondly, it's not a failure of the Modi government because, again, they cannot really control how a certain candidate will behave in the US elections. I'm sure negotiations will be made going down in the future. There will be talks about helping Indian techies because even the Silicon Valley, Google's Sundar Pichai has already come out and made the statement that this is the companies in the United States, they have been made great because of the immigrants who've come to work there. It's just not about the Americans. So there's already a lot of backlash. So this has nothing to do with Narendra Modi, how much people may want to pin it to him. Right. Number 3 is this is more to do with the coronavirus outbreak too. There are 14 million people filing unemployment claims in the United States, and this was still a certain week. So how is Modi responsible for something which is happening inside the United States? Lastly, the number of Indian companies who have been dependent on the H1B visa has come down. For instance, in 2016, the Indian companies had a share of around 51% when it came to the H1B visas allotted. Today, it stands less than 25%. Now, the 7 of the top 10 companies using that H1B route to get more immigrant workers, especially from India or from China, those are the countries of the United States itself. So if anything, Trump will be facing more backlash from the companies and the very companies he's claiming to help, and not the Indian companies won't be impacted that much. Lastly, the work from home situation. Current people are working from home. Techies have the first option to work from home, unlike the frontline workers. And companies at this point, they won't obviously start offshoring right away. They won't go for offices right away in Bengaluru, Pune, or Noida, as many would hope. It won't happen right away. But then they will also look at all the work from home options, how they can diversify the office infrastructure to enable people to work from a different continent. So I don't see this as a dent on the Namaste Trump diplomacy event that actually occurred. In the long run, you look at it either way, the Indians will benefit. If this ban extends beyond December 2020, the companies will look to backlash against this order or probably offshore. And it won't. Most probably, it's just about the election that is coming up. Once Trump wins it, I think he'll go back on this order as he's done with a lot of other orders. We've seen how he played out during the trade war with China. Every new day, there was a new order. Today, he just tweeted that the trade deal with China is intact. So you never know with Trump. He's just playing to the gallery right now, and we shouldn't be making too much about it, and especially in terms of the India-US relations.
Right, but Tushar, leaving Trump aside, I mean, you're presenting a defense of India's foreign policy engagement with the US, but now we see that there are a lot more challenges on the table that have come off late. You can see what's happening with Nepal, and then we have a challenge with China. And there was a lot of effort that was put in by the government in terms of its engagement with these countries and trying to strengthen them. What do you think? Is Modi's diplomatic clout coming apart?
Well, it would be very quick to assume that Modi's diplomatic clout is falling, but especially what we're seeing it with China, thing with the US right now. But that's a very misinformed statement, and I'll tell you why. What is happening with China is something which is happening quite in isolation. For instance, China is not just having trouble with India, it's having trouble in Hong Kong, it's having trouble in South China Sea, it was having trouble with the US since Trump came into power, it is now having trouble with Japan too over a few disputed islands. South Korea, there have been problems. So the problems with China, the Indian problems with China have a lot to do with China itself and not India. India is just reacting to those problems, the transgressions, for instance. So to say that Modi's diplomatic clout is falling apart just because of what we are witnessing in China and the H1B visas in the United States, it would be incorrect. Of course, Indians need to be worried, but this is also a lesson for the Indian IT sector. Because for long we've relied on the US market and for the opportunity to go and work there. This is Indian government of India's chance to actually invite some of those companies over, the GAFAs to begin with, have this sprawling offices in the likes of Noida, Greater Noida, Pune, Bangalore. They already have. They can further have more offices to accumulate more staff. But then that's how it is. To blame it entirely on Modi for something which is being done by Xi Jinping or Donald Trump to boost their national prospects in the local regions, that would be fairly incorrect. That's I would suggest so.
All right, Tushar. Thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you, Karan.